Man, there's no secrets. What you see is what you get. I make extremely high quality educational videos. That's it. How I make them, that's the secret sauce. That's the juice. You just make extremely high quality, very in-depth educational videos and you will grow. There's no doubt about that. I can guarantee that because I've been doing YouTube like consistently for 6-7 years now. If you think you reached the cap, you're just 3% in and you have another 97% to go from like the top person in your space. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try to build new systems. Like if something is working, bro, double down on this fucking thing. Go harder. Figure out how to do it faster, better, bigger. Essentially, my main points that I wanna bring across in this video is the importance of focus, okay? As entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time and energy figuring out what works and what doesn't, right? First, you figure out what doesn't work. For a very long time, you're like figuring out, you're trying all these billion different things. And then you're gonna find out all the ways and all the things, all the methods that don't work. And then if you're lucky, you're gonna find out one thing that works after a lot of iteration and that actually makes you money, you know, you're good at it, you're successful, right? In my case, it's making tutorials. But the struggle becomes that you will believe that after, first you're gonna be like, okay, that's it, you're gonna focus on it. And then after some time, you're like, all right, well, I've reached my limit, you know, have absolutely, like, there's a cap to what you can do. And then you're gonna abandon that thing that works for you. And then you're gonna start working on this other thing that you have could potentially work. You have an idea that it could be better or bigger. And then when that happens, you become extremely disfocused. And yeah, it starts pulling you apart. It's not a good feeling. Let me give you an example. In my case, like I said, making tutorials is something that I'm good at. We really like perfected it. You know, we have the team, we have the setup, we have everything basically to create amazing tutorials. Like we really cracked the code on how to make like amazing tutorials that the audience finds extremely valuable and we make amazing stuff. But the problem is we've just been doing it super recently, like for the past 4 or 5 months. And so we've been putting a lot of effort and we haven't seen much return. So then we conclude, my partner and I, you know, then we're like, oh, okay, well, we're good at this, but it won't really work, right? But then this morning, you know, I was having a coffee after the morning swim. And then out of curiosity, you know, I had a really good night's sleep. I was rested, you know, for the past couple of days. I just felt not the best. So then I went to socialblade.com and I searched up Kevin Stratworth's channel analytics. How many views is he getting, etc. And this really got me thinking and this really kind of put me back on track real quick because Kevin is getting 11 million views per month, okay? And all he does is he posts 4 tutorials per month. And my channel gets roughly 330, 350,000 views per month, right? And so we essentially do the same thing, right? But he's just been doing it for longer and probably knows something that I don't about this space, right? Well, think about that. He probably makes around $25,000 per week just from ad revenue alone. Discounting commissions, discounting any brand deals he might have, discounting none of that. Just pure ad revenue, he makes like $25,000 to $35K per week, depending on his RPM, right? 25 is on the lower end, 35 on the upper end. If he has the same RPM as I have on my channel, then he probably makes like 35. If he has lower, then probably like 25. So anywhere between that range per week, just from ad revenue alone. So think about that. So when I started looking at that, I'm like, man. And then when I did the numbers, okay, this is the crazy part. My views is about 3% of how many views he gets per month. 3%. So my 350,000 views per month is 3% of 11 million, right? I think I did the math right. So you can see that like there's so much room for me to grow in whatever the thing I'm doing. So as entrepreneurs, I was at this conference in Dubai last year, right? And one of the main speakers was like, you know, as entrepreneurs, we have this plague. We figure out when something works and then we try to build another thing and we don't double down on the thing, right? So coming back, well, this is a big lesson for myself first and foremost, is to just double down on what works. You need to be like a horse with those thingies here, you know, where you don't see anything from the side. You need to protect your like focus, and you just need to like do the same thing over and over and over. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try to build new systems. Like if something is working, bro, double down on this fucking thing. Go harder. Figure out how to do it faster, better, bigger. If you think you reached the cap, you're just 3% in and you have another 97% to go from like the top person in your space. Yeah, just started thinking this morning about that, and because I've been torn, you know, the past week or so about, you know, like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I set up a sales funnel? Like, should I run ads? Should I have leads? And like, all that is super important, but like, I don't have that system yet. I don't know how to set it up. It's something completely new to me. And eventually, slowly, I will build out that system. But dropping everything now and then figuring out this new thing, I think is dumb. So I think instead is the smart idea to go about this is to not drop this, but just double down works and just do more of the thing. So yeah, that's my little takeaway from today is like, if you're an entrepreneur, right? And you figured out something and something is working, bro, just do more of the thing that works. Don't reinvent the wheel. And it's hard, man. It's hard because you're gonna come up with all these reasons like, oh, this and that. And you need to, when I say you, I'm talking about first and foremost for myself, right? I need to double down on the thing that works. And it also, by the way, it requires sacrifice, right? So I've spent some time on like building funnels and building pages, and a lot of the things probably I just won't use them, right? And I've spent a bunch of money. And that is also part of like this entrepreneurial thing, is that you're gonna make mistakes, right? You can consider these things as like mistakes / learning, depending on how you look at them. I look at them more as like learnings. Like I've learned a lot of things. I've read a bunch of interesting books while I was doing it. I've set up funnels and ads, right? So it stretches you. It feels kind of like a waste, but it's also learning. It's part of the learning. So another tendency is the sunken cost tendency. So then you might think like, okay, well, I already spent like 500 euros on ads. And then you might think like, you know, I have to continue doing it just to get one lead and, you know, get the money back or something. But it's like, take the loss, take the cost, take it as a learning, and then just like cut the ads and just like focus. So now I've built a bunch of funnels, I've run a bunch of ads. I think I'm gonna just pause all of that. Instead, I'll probably have just one campaign running just to build out my email list with a lead magnet. That lead magnet also will sell my upcoming course, the Affiliate Academy. And yeah, I'm just gonna focus 100% of my efforts on making the best educational tutorials that are out there. And also, another thing is, I'll probably make another course about how I make my actual tutorials. Now I'm very hesitant about making this tutorial because it's like my competitive advantage. Like making these tutorials is quite difficult. Like there's a lot of trade secrets. So just like revealing all of my trade secrets and showing others might create unnecessary competition. But then at the same time, I also look at it like you would need to execute like yourself, this actual thing. But then, and the second thing is like, YouTube is so vast, man, that it doesn't really matter if I create like 100 more people who make tutorials. Like it really doesn't matter because there's like billions and trillions of views. So yeah, there's enough for everyone, you know? The investment can flop. There's always a risk. There's no upside without a downside. It's just, you know, the law of risk and reward, right? So you always need to consider the risk. If anyone tells you that there's an upside without risk, run, because they're trying to scam you. So there's always some kind of a risk involved. There wouldn't be any upside if there wouldn't be a downside. So it's just part of it. Now, obviously certain investments have higher risks, some have lower risk, and that really comes down to your individual preference, what you are comfortable with, you know, how much risk are you willing to take. Some people are okay with more, some people want less. It's just part of the game. Sometimes you will win, sometimes you will lose. As long as your winnings outweigh your losses, you're gonna be good, right? And that's kind of what I'm aiming at. Yeah, courses is an interesting thing, right? I was talking yesterday as well with my partner about that. It's like, why is there so much negative stigma around like selling info and selling a course? right? It was interesting because I started thinking this to like, university, right? A lot of people like go into debt or their parents pay, a lot of money for them to go to university. And, we're talking like 6-figure investments, right? We're talking like $100,000 or euros or more to attend university for whatever, 3, 4, 5 years. And people gladly pay that, people gladly get in debt. But like, what is the ultimate promise of a university? For most people, it's university promises that if you attend this school and you take these tests and you get these grades, we will give you this paper. And with this paper, you are now much more likely to get a job. So pay us, 100K or whatever, and then do the thing. And then you're very likely to get a job that is gonna pay you, 3 to 5K per month. So that's the ultimate promise. And that's why people do it. If there would have been no promise or no paper or nothing like this, and then, people start complaining. People are like, oh my God, I have this degree and nobody wants to give me a job. Like, the market is slow. And I've been looking for a job for like a year and, no one wants to hire me. Like, it's so unfair, right? And that always like amuses me because, you've been kind of sold a lie, you would say. It's like, only because you have this paper, that doesn't guarantee you a job placement. Yeah, it's up to the skills of each individual to be like, hey, I can contribute to the workplace. This is what I'm good at. This is how much return on investments you guys are gonna have by hiring me, right? They don't just gonna hire you for the sake of hiring. They do it because you're gonna bring some kind of a benefit. So coming back to courses as well, it's like, how the saying goes that you can lead a horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink. So there is a lot of value in online education and in courses, right? But it just depends on what kind of a course you buy, from who you buy. There's also many different like networks or like platforms like Udemy and stuff where you can buy it from. But essentially there's nothing evil about an online course, right? I bought online courses before, but I think the stigma there with the courses is that they have been used, with like high pressure sales tactics and, just selling, you're buying from people who actually like have it done themselves. They're just like selling courses to make the money, right? So you need to be careful from who you buy. Like, I've been burnt with courses as well before myself. Like, I bought a couple of times and it was like very good course. And then a couple of times I bought and they were not good courses. So it's not always certain. Yeah, for sure. In a lot of places, Eastern Europe, it's 3 to 5K is a lot of money. Somewhere in it depends also like what's your job, right? Where you're located. Central Europe, the salaries are a bit higher. If you go to the Americas, North America specifically, for example, in Miami, if you have like 10K per month is like barely enough from what I've heard, because the rents are like 5K or something, it's like, it's ridiculously expensive. So it really depends on where you are, what you do, etc. So one of the tricks is of course to sell to a market where the price elasticity is higher and then live in a place where lifestyle is cheaper, So that's one of the tricks. And that's why I think also the online world is so interesting because there's no borders. There's no barriers, I'm now communicating, I have a guy from Hungary, right? Someone from the US might be watching this. So yeah, and we live in a super interesting time, man. I mean, in my opinion, in our lifetime, this whole internet thing is like the biggest opportunity that we have. Internet itself is like the biggest technology, and then inside of the internet, now we have artificial intelligence, right? That's part of like the internet technology, the way I see it. So that's why I love the internet, man. I'm like, when people ask me like, what do you do? I'm like, yeah, I'm on the internet, I'm doing the internet thing, whether it's, creating content, generating leads, doing sales over the phone, over, Google Meets, collaborating with brands all over the world. So it's super interesting. Yeah. Another consideration is that family. I don't know how young or old your parents are, close family, but moving to a faraway place is not easy. It's not easy for me. I thought about it a lot. I thought, okay, well, should I move to the US and build a business there and be in the events business maybe or something like this because I'm an extroverted person. But, if I would live in the United States, right, I would be able to come home realistically like 3-4 times a year, max. And now I see my family, like, I live just 10 minutes drive away from them. So I see them like several times a week. And I'm really close with my family, with my parents. And so I cannot imagine what it would be like to just see them a few times a week, like a year. And, you know, my parents are quite old. They're like 70 plus. They're over 70, both of them. So like, imagine if you like, we think, right? We live our day-to-day life almost like we're immortal, right? We're like, oh, we got all the time in the world until, you know, one day tells you, oh, do you remember that guy? Yeah, he's dead. Then it's like, oh shit, okay. We don't live forever. And so if you look at the average lifespans, right? How many, like, if you can calculate, you know, how many days, months, weeks, whatever you have left with your close ones on average, right? So it's not always an easy decision. I can tell you that. The best, what I found for myself is just like being based where you are, close to family, and then, but doing business online, and then instead like regularly flying to different destinations. You know, we're flying to London end of October, then we're flying to Amsterdam right after that to attend conferences. And then we're attending a creator conference here in Helsinki as well. So yeah, and by the way, the way to do that with the conferences thing is something that I did. I think it was super clever. You go to ChatGPT, you activate the agent mode, and you tell it, hey, you know, this is what I do, right? If you use ChatGPT often, it knows exactly what you do. And then it's like, find me events, you know, in Europe in the next 3 to 6 months that are about marketing, where I can meet creators, where I can meet brands, da 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 da. And then it goes out for like 15 minutes, does this whole fucking research thing, and then it comes back to you and it's like, yeah, these are the events I found. And then you can just go manually check out, and then you can book flights and tickets. Cause like before it was like always a headache to kind of research it myself. But now you can just like ask ChatGPT to do the research on events for you. And then, yeah, it's super cool. So that's a hack as well for those of you who want to fly to events. So that's a setup I like for myself. Are we all in the internet? We are all on the internet, right? But there's a big difference between creating and consuming. If you're just consuming, then you're basically the one who is paying for the internet. But if you're creating, then you start to get paid from the internet as well. So it's you need to create. Yeah, well, you think a lot, like it's a big thing to think about after 3 generations and stuff. It's interesting that you think that way, but man, 3 generations is a big stretch, you know? Try to make your first €1,000,000 and then try to make 10, and then, or don't make money at all and then be like Mother Teresa. I'm just reading her authorized biography now. She was not about the money, man. She was about helping the poorest of the poor. And she got global recognition. She got awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, I think. Was it Peace Prize? Basically a Nobel Prize. Or you can be a scientist, right? It's not always about business. It just so happens that I am in business. And so I kind of judge the whole world based on like business and entrepreneurs and like money. It's really hard for me to even like to take the perspective of like, you know, scientist or an engineer or, you know, a physician or whatever. Yeah, but there are many interesting things out there to do for sure. Focusing, doubling down, basically moving forward. I'm gonna cut out Facebook ads. I'm just gonna keep one campaign running for the lead magnet, for the affiliate starter kit, build out an email list. There's gonna be a drip campaign that's gonna, you know, lead people to buying the course. Let's see. What's the conversion rate going to be there? What the numbers are going to be there, like if it makes sense or not. Maybe I'll just pause it and then just do organic and then just like focus on profitability. Oh, another big thing is you got to put money away for taxes. Okay. So funny. And another thing, by the way, talking about taxes is I see, you know, I live here and there's like these we live by the school here, right? And so there are young kids who go to school, young boys. And then we have bus stops and then there's like glass, you know, and then they like, every time, man, they just like destroy the glass. You know, they have these like mopeds that they kind of rev at night. Like, luckily we have an AC, so we don't hear it anymore, you know, or they're like the whole summer they were blowing up like, you know, those rockets, like fireworks. They were just blowing that whole thing up as well. So that's crazy. And it's funny because I was a pretty mischievous, reckless young guy as well. But all of that changes as soon as you pay your first tax bill. Because if you live, for example, in Finland, right, the taxes are super high. And then you're like, all right, here's the tax bill. You got to pay your taxes, right? And then you pay, like I paid something like 13,500 euros in taxes. I can check my tax bill for last year, right? And then as soon as you pay your first tax bill, then you're like, oh shit, fuck those. Like, why are you breaking the, because everything like the roads, the bus stops, right? Everything comes from tax money, right? So you're kind of contributing, you're paying for those things. So then it's like, all right, well, let's take care of what we're kind of building here, right? And then you become a bit like resentful of the people who destroy it, who like, I'm all up for beautiful graffiti, for beautiful street art. But if it's just ugly, man, if you're just kind of like vandalism, like I don't like vandalism. I think that's just like, you're like a parasite basically living off the cost of, the society essentially and just destroying stuff. That's that. But yeah, whenever you make money, you got to put some money aside for tax. That's something that I learned because I can tell you a story of what happened to me so I started, producing more. I started creating content. Money starts kind of coming into the bank account. You feel great. You're like, all right, great. Money is flowing in and out. You start to upgrade equipment, starts to do this and that. And then next year comes around, tax season, and then boom, you get a tax letter that says like, hey, you owe us 13,500 euro. And I'm like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? I didn't save for this. So then, the profits that I have in mind kind of saved up. Then I'm like, okay, I have this money. It's like, boom, gone, like now you got to take all that money and just like pay it for tax. So that sucks. That sucks a lot. So in order to prevent that, a good tip that I learned from Grant Cardone is to, whenever you make money, just like put half of it away for the tax man, right? Grant says like 40, 40, 20. So 40 for the tax person, 40 for yourself, and then 20 is something that you live on, right? So you got to live on 20, you got to invest 40 for yourself, and then you got to give 40 to the tax man, right? So we can have a functioning society essentially. So that's the percentage I would say, 40, 40, 20%. You are ahead of me here, right? So 40% for tax. Like if you get a brand deal, for example, right? Or if you have a check come in from whatever, right? Anytime you get money come in, just like put 40% aside to tax. Man, trust me, get a separate, I'm gonna start doing it like right away. I'm gonna make a separate account in my bank. It's gonna be called tax. And every time some money lands, 40% of that is gonna go to tax right away. 40% to investments. And then you wanna get to a point where your lifestyle costs are like 20% of how much you make, right? So that's where you wanna get to. Not, obviously the more you make, it should be lower, right? So you can start investing more, but that's the way to really go about this. Do not get distracted. Every time you lose focus, come back to it. It's kind of like meditation. Every time you lose focus, just come back to the breath, right? Same with entrepreneurship. Every time you lose focus, come back to the thing that works and that makes you money. I'm working on this like massive project right now. It's gonna be a complete tutorial for beginners. It's gonna be like 4 or 5 hours long or something like this. All things make money online. So it's gonna be like a complete course for beginners, how to make money online. There's no course attached, nothing. It's gonna be like a full course of itself. And the only call to action there is just gonna be to subscribe to my newsletter, essentially. So once a week, I send out a newsletter. It's called Growth Notes. Essentially, I'm building an online business, right? And I document what I do, right, on the internet with you guys. I share what I think, I share what I learn, and it's also a written format. So if you want to get like weekly kind of tips, actionable advice from me about what I've learned or how to implement better to make money online, just subscribe. It's on my site. The next product that I'm gonna work on is gonna be a course on how I make my tutorials. Like I said, I'm very, very, very hesitant to give away my trade secrets, but I don't think a lot of people are gonna take action. You know, even the people who like buy the course, I don't think a lot of people are gonna go to the extent that I go to create tutorials as good as I do. I really don't think so. Maybe like 1 out of, I don't know, 50 people or something are probably gonna go to the extent that I take, you know, because I'm like foaming up my whole, basically now apartments to just to get the audio quality better. Imagine that. Like you can hear me pretty well, right? Because I have this shotgun mic right there. I'm thinking about it. It kind of makes sense to do it because if I want to like sell a product, I think that would be probably the best product for me to do, kind of like a fit, you know, because that's something that I've gotten really good at, like making tutorials, not just like shitty small ones, but actually like massive, like I call them monster tutorials because they're just like big and heavy and they're expensive. Like it's a whole thing. But there's like a small segment of people I feel like who discover my channel and they're like, oh my God, like these are really good tutorials, right? And then it's like, oh, by the way, look, I have a product where I show you and I teach you how I make them. So I think a lot of people would be interested in that. The question is whether I want to do it or not. It's the first time, but I'm like super hesitant to actually make it. So still thinking, not sure, but maybe I will. You know, like I said, because YouTube is so vast and so big that it's like, it doesn't really matter if like there's 10 more people who make tutorials, you know, because there's just so much demand. YouTube is so big, you know, there's like trillions of views, you know, so why would I not? And it's also like when you do something and it feels like kind of like a sacrifice from you, because I think about it like this. If I would have discovered this course that I would build, right, about how to make tutorials, it would actually change my life, like back in the day, you know? It would actually change my life because I would learn so much, and I'm the kind of person who just like, when I learn something, I just jump straight into like the execution. I'm like, okay, that's it. Like that's what I'm gonna do, you know? I guess you could say that it would also be my contribution to the success of others. Kind of like give back in terms of like what I've learned. Obviously I would charge for it, right? But I wouldn't give away for free. But even then, still, you know, like the value that I would provide there. Like imagine this, I make like $30,000 per month, right? Top line revenue. I'm not talking profit, I'm talking top line revenue with my business. So like, bro, you're getting $350,000 if you count annually worth of, you know, knowledge, worth of like experience and lessons and everything. Essentially, man, there's no secrets. What you see is what you get. I make extremely high quality educational videos. That's it. How I make them, that's the secret sauce. That's the juice. It's like you just make extremely high quality, very in-depth educational videos and you will grow. There's no doubt about that. I can guarantee that. But how you make those videos, dude, I spent the last 7 years figuring that out, right? Because I've been doing YouTube like consistently for 6-7 years now. And that is when you start to get into the nitty gritty. Like, think about this, like I told you, right? I'm foaming up, like I'm ordering like 1,000 euros worth of foam, like foam, you know? Like audio soundproof foam from Temu, just so I can like put it all over my roof and everywhere, like my ceiling. That is just so I can have better sound quality. Like you can see the backdrop, you know, like this backdrop took me so much to perfect as well. Like, by the way, you see that little thing there, that cable? I don't like that cable. So now I'm after this recording, I'm gonna go and fix it, right? I'm like very perfectionist about these small things, but just because, you know, all this matters. So you just figure out how to make extremely good videos. You learn that. And I learned it through just like doing it, you know? I didn't have a course that would teach you how to make, you know, educational videos. I didn't have a course like that. If I did, I would have definitely taken it, but I didn't. So I had to figure it out very, very slowly all by myself. Now with like AI and ChatGPT, man, it's crazy how fast you can actually figure things out because you can just ask, hey, how do I set up the lighting? what's the best lighting setup? Hey, what kind of cameras can I get away with as a small creator? Hey, like, what do I need? That it's just like, it's crazy, right? The best niche is the one that you can consistently create content in for a long time. Because if you get into something and just for the money, for example, well, guess what? You're gonna burn out really quickly because you're gonna end up doing the thing that you don't like in the first place. My whole journey has been characterized by just following my curiosity. Like, I can give you a couple of examples. When I was about 13, 14, has anyone played with like fingerboards, right? Like skateboards, but like small ones for fingers? Yeah. So I discovered that and I was like, this is so cool, right? And then I followed my curiosity like so far that I started playing with them. I started like researching online, where can I get like those custom boards from like, you know, very nice wood with like, cause you know, there was like those tech decks, they were all kind of plasticky and the wheels were plastic and I didn't like it. I wanted to get something real, like an actual cool one, like a cool piece. So there was this one company somewhere that was doing them from like actual wood, and there was like actual small rubber wheels and metal pieces, like really, really high quality. So then I went ahead and I contacted them, and, you know, we figured it out how to send it. Cause this was back in like, what am I, 29 now? And I was 12, like 17 years ago, man. That's a long time, right? Think about that. And then I figured out how to do that. And I remember it came, and then I ordered like the park for it as well. So, and then the reason I'm saying this is because I then started like a group on Facebook that was a Russian version of Facebook, vk.com back in the day. And I started a group just out of my own curiosity, just out of my own passion for the thing. And I was like, this is to all the fingerboard enthusiasts, right? And I had no inclination of like making money or growing it. I just purely wanted to share the info or the things that I was like finding exciting, you know, some news or something. And then it grew, man, and it grew. It was so crazy. I logged in one day back and I checked the group and it had like 1,000 people in there. I'm like, what? That's crazy. So like I hit the SEO back in the day, right? If someone would be searching for fingerboard on VK, my group was showing up and they were joining because they want, and I was like sharing just genuine like stuff. That's first thing. Another thing, like I was learning when I was about 15, I think. I was 15, 16. I was learning how to make beats, like music, in GarageBand on Mac. And I was watching all these tutorials on YouTube, learning how to use it, like how to navigate the interface. And then like once I figured out how to make a simple beat, because I would like deep, man. I would wake up, I would do it, you know, I would do it all day. I would go to bed, do it, right? Same with World of Warcraft. I used to play a lot of that as well. And then I figured out how to make a beat. And then for some weird reason, I went to YouTube. I created an account, like a channel. I screen recorded my computer, walked the person through how to make the beat, just like layering 3 or 4 different tracks, like piano, drum, something else. And then I shared it for some reason on YouTube because I just wanted to show like, look, this is what I've learned. Like this is how, like, I've learned this thing, here's how you can do it as well. And it's funny because if you go now to my channel and you sort by the oldest, that's the first video ever published on my channel. I like to tell this story because it's super full circle moment for me, because now all I do is just tutorials, right? Educational videos. And way back before I had any financial incentive or anything like this, I was doing tutorials. So it's a full circle moment, and I think it's meant to be for sure. But I don't, to be honest, worry too much about being underrated. I heard once MKBHD said that he never had like a viral moment throughout his career on YouTube as well. It was just like a slow burner, you know? Just consistently posting, growing. So I know that one day I'm gonna have 1 million subscribers more. I know that, right? Maybe several million, but I'm not in a hurry to get there. I have a great lifestyle. I take my mornings slow. I work for myself. I get to travel a lot. I support my family. I do the stuff that I really like. I work with amazing brands. I work with amazing companies. I love the people with whom I work with, you know, my team. everybody. And it's a slow burner, man. I'm in here for the long term. So it's, whatever. I can see myself doing tutorials in the next 20 years, hopefully AI doesn't take me out of my job and starts making like way better tutorials than I could. But even then, I still feel like there's gonna be place for human connection, even in educational material, like for sure. Now you can learn, you can learn with AI and everything, and probably like the generations following are gonna be really good at learning with AI. I want to believe that there's still gonna be space for humans to educate other humans. So yeah, that's my take on that. I don't worry about being underrated or not having, I've been hearing that, like, I'm not to brag, but people said that before, they're like, right? But just consistently chipping away at it every day, little by little, I'm growing by 800 something subscribers per month. I'm getting right now 323,000 views on my main channel per month. I get 8.3 thousand watch hours. I'm growing by 833 subscribers. So yeah, that's my current growth. So almost at 1,000 per month, which isn't bad at all. So 12,000 per year, but I'm working all the time. So as I'm adding more high quality videos to my library of content, that increases the views, the watch hours, and of course the subscribers as well. Yeah, slowly, we'll get there. I have no doubts that I'm gonna get to millions of subscribers. It's just a matter of time. I'll probably still be live streaming once in a while. Live streaming is actually really fun because you just get to like sit here, talk, you get to practice talking in front of camera, right? Then you get in the zone, like I'm in the zone, right? I almost feel like a connection, between like whoever is watching to where I am right now, So it's really cool. And yeah, I like live streaming. It's something that I've been pursuing. And I use this thing called riverside.fm for live streaming. It connects my chat. I can see everything here. And then also a great thing that Riverside does is once I'm done with the recording, it creates shorts for me, and it creates segments as well. So my editor then goes ahead, polishes it up, makes sure that like AI didn't mess up, cleans up the captions, and then he basically sends it over to my project manager who has access to my channel, and then he posts that on my behalf. So all I have to do is just sit here, talk with you guys, right? Share valuable information, and then AI will identify moments in this conversation that were valuable, and then that will automatically get posted onto my channel after some time, which I think is incredible, right? This is like just amazing.